honest discussion with everybody as well. Yeah, I'm with you. Somebody said, I wish people loved God more. Somebody said, is God okay with war? If you're asking if God is okay with like the Afghanistan war, World War II or something like that, the answer would be no. There were a very small number of wars that were had in the Old Testament that God commanded to happen. And the way that I would like to explain this is like this. Back in the day, you know, there were people doing really horrible things like, you know, murdering innocent children and raping their own women and things like this. Terrible stuff in their own communities. And people ask all the time, if God is so good, why doesn't he stop all of the evil in the world? And finally, God stops the evil in the world, and everyone wonders why God is so heartless and inhumane for stopping the evil in the world. It's like you can't make some people happy with the things that they're doing. So anyways, all that to say, you know, no. Definitely Jesus had a handful of wars where he had people stop the horrible things that people were doing in the earth, but no, that's not the just general consensus of what we should be doing. Someone said if you were born in Iran, you would not be saying this. That's a false kind of assumption there. To assume that just because you are born in a certain place determines your beliefs, although it can play a impact in what you believe, has zero relevancy upon the truth. The truth is not correlated rather at all to the things that you believe. Just because you believe that you should slaughter, you know, 12 million Jews or 10 million Jews or whatever, doesn't make it right or doesn't make it appropriate. In the same way that just because you believe in Islam because you grew up in a Middle Eastern country doesn't make it right either. So although some people do believe what they believe because of where they're born, has nothing to do with the truth. So I don't care about what people believe because of where they're born. I care about the truth. Someone says, is there any proof of Jesus being real? Yes, there's no one who's taken seriously in the entire, you know, intellect community at large, is a very broad phrase, who does not believe that Jesus was a real person. Like, it's not even like, if you, like, why would you believe that George Washington exists or Abraham Lincoln exists? It makes zero sense for you to believe those people exist if you're going to question Jesus' existence. But the only reason that people question Jesus' existence is because you don't want Jesus to exist, because you know if he does, you can't be watching your porn anymore. You can't justify getting away with treating people bad, taking advantage of people, lying, etc. So that's why people don't want to believe in Jesus' existence. Why do Christians decide or believe that they can decide who goes to heaven and hell? Genuine question. I appreciate your genuine question. I think it's a fair question. Christians... well, I'll say this. Matthew 7 says, good trees bear good fruit, bad trees bear bad fruit. We know the kind of tree that it is by the fruit that it bears, and those that do not bear good fruit are going to be cut down and burned up in an unquenchable fire. There are certain very clear indications on whether somebody is saved or not. For example, the gospel itself is Ephesians 2:8-9, for it is by grace through faith that you have been saved, not of your own works, lest any man should boast, but it's a free gift of God unto salvation. Fancy way of saying that you're saved not by the things that you do, but because of what Jesus did for you. So if somebody's going to say, I'm a Muslim, can I go to heaven? And they believe what Muslims believe, the answer would be, of course, no. No, you're not going to go to heaven. So a Christian can make that judgment call because, again, they're literally just quoting what the scripture says in the first place. Now, if you're not living as holy as they may be, or, you know, supposedly as they may be, and you're going to make a decision on somebody else's salvation, in that context, I would say, no, you're wrong. You can't start making claims on other people's salvations who are claiming to try to follow Jesus the best way that they can, and by be falling into sins or something like that. No, a Christian should not have the arrogance or audacity to tell somebody else whether they're saved in that boat. What other questions y'all got? Also, everybody who's just joining us, if you would, hit us with a follow. I'm going to let some people on here to have some audible, like, you know, conversations, dialogue back and forth with me. So hit me with a follow so that we can have some of these conversations. Someone said, what if heaven isn't real, as Christians base their beliefs on greed in the afterlife? That's not true. I don't know what Christian told you that it's based upon greed in the afterlife, but that's just like objectively false. It's not even close to true. Christians oftentimes recognize that they're going to suffer and be attacked a lot for their beliefs in this life so that they can live in a place with their creator and there's not going to be any pain, hurt, suffering, etc. There's no one who I've met who believes, and again, more importantly, the Bible does not teach that because you believe in Jesus means that you are going to be filthy rich and greedy in heaven. I don't even know where you're coming up with that. Yeah, I'm with you. There are so many people against him, and I do pray as well that these people come and meet the King of the universe, because yeah, there's a lot of arrogant and proud and haughty people in these in these live chats who really need Jesus. So I could not agree with you more. Someone said, do I accept evolution? I don't know what you mean by do I accept evolution. If you're asking if I believe in Darwinian, the theory of Darwinian evolution, where a banana can turn into a dog or a bird or a cat or a human over millions of years, no, I don't believe in tooth fairy type stuff like that. If you're asking if I believe in speciation, where there's a change of kinds, meaning different dogs adapt to different locations that they're in over time, can get bigger, can get smaller, thicker, thinner wool or fur, etc. Of course, that is a scientific fact. Darwinian evolution of a banana turning into a dog one day, that's ridiculous. I don't have enough faith to believe in something like that. Somebody put evolution as a fact. No, that is not a fact. It's a false. It is fiction. That is a theory that is created that makes zero sense. Some people are confused on why I made a correlation from bananas to dogs. You guys are showing me how little you actually know about the evolution that you actually believe in. Obviously, none of you have read Origin of Species by Charles Darwin, or you would know exactly what I'm referring to, because he's the one that came up with this in the first place, this theory, and popularized it in his book, Origin of Species. So the point that I'm getting at is he says that. He says that he believes that the same cell that turned into a banana over millions of years can turn into a fish or a dog or a bird or a cat. So the fact that you guys don't know that, who are, mocking the common sense view of science, is really ironic. Someone said, you don't need belief when there are physical fossils to prove it. Show me one physical, any sort of factual proof or fossil of a dog turning into a human. Just one, and I'll change everything I believe right now. It's going to get quiet in the comments. Someone said, talks about religion and politics always bring out the worst in everybody. Yeah, I agree that definitely that a lot of times when people talk about politics, they can't have rational conversations about it, which is one of the things I'm here to change, is to have those kind conversations, normal, chill conversations with y'all about why I believe what I believe and why I believe that you should. But, there's someone on my live yesterday and they were whiling and getting all hot and bothered. And yeah, just told them, like, hey, if you can't say chill, we just won't have a conversation together. And they couldn't say chill. And ironically, God did the work for me, because their connection just automatically failed, like, right after I said that. Someone said Deuteronomy 21. I'm not familiar with Deuteronomy 21, so I'm sorry I can't speak to that.
Round 4. Marshal your courage, Spartan. We're flying so...
Sorry, y'all are talking so fast. I'm trying to scroll up and see some of the conversations. Someone said, why did Jesus lie in John 3:13? I'm not sure what you're referring to. If you could quote John 3:13. Obviously, your manipulatively asked question is obviously implying that he lied, which obviously is not true. But I'm not sure what John 13 or 3:13 says off the top of my head. So if you could expound upon what it says, that'd be much appreciated. Someone said the love of God and Jesus is based upon fear. That is false. Again, it's crazy how people online can just magically pull stuff out of their butt and say that it's truth or facts just because they want it to be. It's not true. It's actually based upon love, right? Our faith in Jesus is based actually upon love. That God showed his love for us in this, that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us, died for the ungodly. So no, that's false. That you just made that up. Do Christians unfairly or unhealthily use the tactic of fear to try to scare people into following him? Well, yeah, of course there's people who do that. I'm not pro doing that. I am pro telling people about the consequence of their actions, though. Of if you believe in, if you're going to reject Jesus, if you're not going to follow Jesus, then he has a place called separation from God that you will be for eternity, called hell, and you will spend eternity in hell because of that. Because of your decision. But again, you made the decision. God didn't make the decision. You made the decision for yourself where you wanted to go. You chose to not believe in Jesus, and you chose to spend eternity in hell. And you have the liberty to make that decision if you want. Nobody can stop you from making that decision. But yeah, to just fearmonger people is not biblical. Someone asked what is my favorite Bible verse and why. I'm really bad at picking favorites on anything, but one of my favorites for sure is Galatians 2:20. For I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who lives, but Christ who lives in me. In this life that I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in God who loved me and gave himself up for me. I'm going to let some people on the live to have conversation back and forth here in just a minute. So if you would, hit me with a follow, and then we will have a conversation with like an open audio dialogue back and forth here in a minute. That's a good question. Somebody said, why do most Christians pray to God or Jesus more than God himself? First of all, I'm not even sure that's an accurate statement. I'm not sure that is actually true. Most people pray in Jesus' name because that's what we see done in the early church in the book of Acts. But to say that they pray to Jesus more than God, I would not say is an accurate statement. I've never seen the evidence of that. Someone said, I love how he ignores hard questions. I'm about to let people hop on. Nobody ask me hard questions. Just so you guys know what I'm doing right now, the reason I'm not looking at you and I'm looking at a screen over here is I'm streaming live while I'm answering these questions. So different questions that come in on YouTube live and questions that are coming in here, I'm bouncing back and forth in regards to answering the questions while I'm streaming. Someone said, you can't answer any of my questions and that's disturbing. Ask your questions again. Someone said, why am I an authority on Jesus? Please define authority. I don't know who told you I said that I was an authority on Jesus. Someone said, is Jesus a demigod like Hercules? No. Someone said, do I think this is the way to bring people to Jesus? Wonderful question. Yes. Obviously, a lot of the proud, arrogant, condescending people are who you're seeing in the comments section. But out of the 100 people who are here currently, there are tons of people. Somebody just said this in the live yesterday. They said after hearing me come on and do these lives regularly, they've given their lives to Jesus. I have seen dozens and dozens of people come to Jesus for my conversations like this, online or in person with people. So yes, I think that having calm, cool, collected conversations with people back and forth about our beliefs is definitely helping other people believe in Jesus. Now, obviously, again, you have your proud, arrogant, haughty people here who are just here to troll or try to be difficult or just try to like do a boom roast session. Obviously, I don't think that those people, I think those people are too proud to receive Jesus. They think that they're smarter than Jesus, and for that reason, they're not receiving Jesus. But there's plenty of people who aren't asking questions who have genuine, they're genuinely here because they actually care about having an answer, and they care about the truth and not care about just mocking, ridiculing, and whatnot. So, all right. I'll answer one more question, then I'll let somebody on the live with me. So hit me with the questions y'all got. What are your questions? And again, if you would, hit me with a follow, and I will have somebody on the live here with me to go back and forth and have a little bit of dialogue. Also, while you guys are asking your last question I'm going to answer before doing the lives, here's how this thing works. Somebody is going to come on, and they're going to present their case for 2 minutes. I am then going to take 2 minutes to respond. I will let you say a final thought. I will say a final thought, and that will be it. And then we'll go to the next person. Because just like if somebody was on here yesterday, I was debating with a Black Hebrew Israelite who was arguing with me for a solid 5 minutes that Jerusalem was in Africa. Like that he believes today on a map that Jerusalem was in Africa. So like, the conversation ends up going nowhere, and it becomes rather fruitless, and I don't want that to happen for the respect of everybody else's time who's actually trying to hear and listen. And then we'll just let the next person hop on, and we'll keep doing the same thing over and over again. If somebody starts to get crazy, starts yelling, starts whiling, etc., under a circumstance like that, I'm just going to have to, ask somebody, pop off the chat, and have another person come in. So someone said, do I think that God would be proud of my behavior on TikTok? Yeah, that's why I'm doing it. One more question, I'm having somebody go live. That's a great question. Somebody says, is there a second chance to get into heaven after a second coming? I'm assuming that your question is, once Jesus comes, do I think that, you can, change your mind and say, I'm not, I'm not going to, go to heaven anymore? And the answer would be no. I don't think that like once you've died and you're dead, that when Jesus comes back, you have like a second chance to change your mind. There's zero biblical evidence of that happening whatsoever.
Round 2. Going it alone, eh?
Awesome. Well, hey, somebody requests to be in the chat. I'm going to let y'all request to, or excuse me, not the chat, but to come on and have an audio chat with me. So anybody who is interested in doing that, come on in, and I'd love to be able to have a conversation with you. We'll give you all a sec to request coming on, and then we'll have a chat. All right, the friendly agnostic, you are on. Let's hear what you have to say.
Hey, what's up, Cody? How are you?
I am lovely, man. How are you?
Awesome. So my question is very simple. I said in the chat, John 3:13, Jesus says something that is not true. Now, that's either a lie that he purposely said, or that he was ignorant of the facts. But what he says is, John 3:13, no one has ever gone into heaven except the one who has come from heaven, the Son of Man. The Son of Man is Jesus, so he's talking about himself in the third person there. But we know that people have gone up to heaven. That's Enoch and Elijah. 2 Kings 2:11, Elijah is carried up into heaven in a fiery chariot or a whirlwind. So that's one example right there. So why did Jesus say this?
Great question. Let me pull it up on my end and read it with you.
Sacrifice your flesh for the burning.
Got it. Yeah. So first off, thank you for like accurately quoting that passage. Just wanted to make sure, because some people they'll pull out a translation from Lord knows where to try to prove whatever point they're trying to prove. And you did not do that. So hey, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you being cool. Yeah, good question. So there are different views in regards to how eternity is handled, right? We have certain people who are like the Mormons, who believe that there's like some sort of holding place. Catholics believe something similar. Jehovah's Witnesses believe something different, or excuse me, something similar as well. You can check out in Luke chapter, don't know the exact verse, or chapter, excuse me, so don't quote me on the chapter. Somewhere around 8-ish, where we see Lazarus and the rich man having a conversation. And when those people are having a conversation, it kind of reminds you of when Jesus is talking when he's on the cross to the thief, and he says, "This day you will be with me in paradise." Well, obviously, Jesus didn't actually go into heaven that day, so what did he mean by this day? Well, it's similar to what he's sharing in the story of the rich man and Lazarus, where Lazarus and the rich man, they're both in the afterlife. Obviously, you know, we as Christians call the afterlife heaven, but they're not actually in heaven though. They're in death. They're in this holding place. They're waiting to actually go into heaven officially in. So the most common response to that question would be that those people were going to be going to heaven, absolutely, but those people were going to be, for that moment at least, staying in this holding place of, you know, Hades, death, Sheol, Gehenna, whatever you want to call it.
But Elijah isn't in a holding place. It says specifically, I'm on 2 Kings 2:11, that suddenly a chariot of fire and horses of fire appeared and separated the two of them. Elisha was the other person.
Right.
And Elijah went up to heaven. It specifically says heaven, in a whirlwind. So was the writer of 2 Kings misspoken there?
No, I don't think he was misspoken. It's a very fair question. No, I don't think that he was misspoken. I think that he was probably... I would say that he would probably have not had been clear on the actual workings of where somebody went directly at the point of eternity, which, to that point, obviously the agnostic or atheist claim or response back would be, oh my gosh, so he didn't understand fully how heaven worked, so, you know, checkmate kind of thing. To which I would say, you know, again, I'm going to scare some of my Reformed friends here, but I don't believe that... a lot of my Reformed friends would say that these people in the Bible had a full 100% certainty and confidence on everything scientific, because God asked them to write a book in the Bible, so they wrote that book in the Bible. Therefore, even all of their scientific knowledge would have been like on par with what we say today. To which I would say, no, I would not agree with that statement at all. I mean, we don't even see that as a reality in their view of the shape of the earth. They did not think it was square, by the way. They didn't think it was flat earth. But they didn't have an understanding of the earth being entirely round. But even between, you know, Bart Ehrman, Sam Harris, atheist kind of scholars and things like this, it's not of concern to them in regards to the validities of the claims that Jesus made, simply because somebody like that did not believe in a specific scientific thing the correct way. Like, obviously the people who are writing the Bible aren't perfect. They're not God. They're not all-knowing. So the things that they're writing in context of things like, again, science, are not going to be accurate very regularly. But again, that's not even of concern between people like a Bart Ehrman figure or Richard Dawkins or otherwise. But I'll let you say your final thoughts on it, though.
Don't you see, like, there's a problem and a discrepancy in the Bible then? Because if we're talking about layers of heaven or there's a holding place, it's not being specific in either 2 Kings or Jesus speaking. And Jesus isn't being clear enough, which, I mean, if there's levels of heaven or a holding place, all these things, it doesn't take too many more words to just explain all that. Or even in 2 Kings, it doesn't take many more words to explain it wasn't actually heaven, or it could have said another name. Like, it seems like this is an obvious error that could have easily been fixed if this were true. Well,
yeah, so the idea of a discrepancy versus an error is totally different. And so the point that I'm getting at here is you could use your logic that you just said on a million different things that we see in Scripture, where this could have been said different, worded different, clarified different. I mean, there's a passage that talks about the four corners of the earth, and some goofballs have used that to assume that the earth was flat. So just staying on that kind of line of thinking. But my point is that just because something could have been clarified better, I mean, if we wanted to really give a clear, zero ambiguity in the in the entire Bible, I mean, the book would be 2,000 pounds, right? So no, that wouldn't be of concern because he didn't clarify something. When we're looking at either of the passages, I care, and what, again, even skeptical like scholars would care about would be the point that's being made in either of those passages. And the point in the John 3 passage is to show somebody who is a Pharisee, a Jewish leader of the time, showing that person that, hey, your understanding of what it looks like to follow Yahweh is completely off, and the actual things that you need to be doing, you're not doing, but you're doing all the things that nobody was asking you to do in the first place. So all that to say, again, you can find any single phrase, verse, word, etc. that isn't a contradiction, but it's just something that definitely could have been clarified way clearer, but wasn't, because that wasn't the point that was trying to be made from that story, right? Jesus didn't write John 3. John wrote John 3. And John was writing the story to emphasize a point. He's trying to get a point across to the person listening, like you and me. And the point that he's trying to get across, again, it's not that he incorrectly wrote it down or something like that. It's just that thing is not relevant or necessary to be clarified for the point that's being made in that passage.
I mean, yeah, but right after John 3:16 is a major point of Christianity, right? Mm-hmm. So the entire context of the entire speech Jesus is giving is extremely important. Mm-hmm. So that's why it's funny that it's John 3:13, it's right above John 3:16, which John 3:16 is probably everyone's favorite passage, and is very explicit about what Jesus is trying to convey. Mm-hmm. So he's grouping those two things together, and I would think that what he says in John 3:13 would be not just like something that he's saying, but a very explicit thing that he's saying. He's trying to give to Nicodemus, hey, this is something very important. And he goes into John 3:16 saying, God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten son, that he who believes in him shall have eternal life. Yeah. That's a huge, important fact of Christianity that he's saying there. And I just don't see how you couple that with something that's an obvious error, which is Jesus saying no one has ascended into heaven, which we know people have. And so I'm maybe if you think there's a different level of heaven, but I've never seen anywhere that there's different levels of heaven, and Jesus is explicitly saying that.
First Thessalonians.
I just see no one's ascended into heaven except for the one who's descended, but that's not true.
Yeah, First Thessalonians is where it talks about the three layers of heaven. So yeah, I think that you have an understanding from maybe how you've grown up or otherwise in regards to what you understand heaven as to being. And I would just say that your understanding that you may have grown up within kids' church or whatever is just not the classical.
Yeah, I wasn't kids' church. I was a worship pastor.
Okay.
And I was a youth leader, so I was in Christianity for 28 years, heavily involved in the church. I've done Bible studies galore, you name it, and I'm even doing it now as agnostic, and I do lives where I go over the Bible with Christians, and it seems like they're mistaken many of the times. So
I would agree with that, by the way.
I think it's when I'm reading it, I can understand what I'm reading, and I see that there's a discrepancy.
Yeah. By the way, I would agree that most Christians that you're going to talk to, like, I'm sure that you have a total heyday on these lives because most Christians don't study the Bible at all. Most Christians couldn't tell you what the Greek word or definition to the word heaven is, or Hebrew word heaven means in those passages. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure that you can have a heyday with most Christians, but that doesn't change whether the original intent of the original author was to either have a potential supposed contradiction, or you have just always had a pretty consistent understanding of what heaven is, because again, you probably were raised being taught that way. Again, your pastor probably even taught that way, and I would probably reject how he would be teaching that. That's why a lot of my, that's why I said earlier, a lot of my Reformed friends, they don't like a whole lot of things I say anyways, because I'm going to be butting heads with them on a lot of things, because again, they take something at face value because they heard it from their pastor, not because it's what the Bible actually teaches.
Well, that sounds like the Bible's very unclear if so many people disagree. You're talking about pastors getting it wrong, multiple people getting it wrong. How is so many people getting it wrong? I don't understand that.
Yeah, no, great question. They're getting it wrong because they're hearing what somebody else said, who is saying what somebody else said that was older than them, who said what somebody else said that was older than them, and the line just keeps on going and going, and they're not actually studying the text themselves. Like I was just mentioning.
Pastors?
Huh?
Pastors aren't studying the text and reading it?
Dude, we've got pastors who are using ChatGPT to find sermons for themselves. Like, maybe you went to a more honorable, noble church than that, but yes, no, there's plenty of pastors out there. There's plenty of pastors who are doing it out there for a paycheck. There's plenty of pastors who are doing it out there because they're hoping that they'll be able to have a private jet one day like Kenneth Copeland does. I mean, yeah, as I said, I'm not super pro the American church system at all, because that's not how Jesus' church system was. So yes, I think that there's a lot of people who have a lot of confusing understandings on a bunch of, again, secondary issues. So what regardless of what somebody's view is or understanding is of heaven, plays zero concern in regards to where they will be spending eternity. I care what people believe on the primary issues, and most of all Christians have very clear consensuses, unanimous consensuses on those main core principles of Christianity. Other things, when you should get baptized, how baptism works, should you drink alcohol, how much alcohol, secular music, all those things. I couldn't really care less what somebody's beliefs are about those things, because they just don't matter at the end of the day.
So you think that there's 3 levels of heaven, similar to what Mormons believe?
No, I don't believe what Mormons believe. I am
similar to what Mormons believe, not exactly what they believe.
No, I'm plenty fine saying that I have zero understanding of what Paul meant there, because he said something in 2 sentences in 1 Timothy, and that's all he gave us. So I'm again probably contrary to most Christians. I'm okay saying I just don't know what he meant by that. I don't know the full extent of what that would look like. But just because I don't understand what it looks like doesn't just automatically default to that means it's a contradiction.
Yeah, but isn't that kind of weird that we had literally God on earth and he didn't explain heaven, something that's going to be something we experience for eternity, which this is such a short life that we live. We had God on earth and he just failed to give us the ins and outs of what to expect, and he couldn't just talk on it himself.
No, I don't, because, just like we don't have a tremendous amount on hell either. I don't think that the point of having the conversations, and again, I don't want to speak for God on this because there's not a verse that can lead me to give you a clear answer to that. But for what reason? What purpose would there need to be such clarity on it? Like, I know I want to be there. Like, I know that Scripture gives me enough in Revelation 20-ish to let me know that heaven is a place where there's going to be no pain, hurt, suffering. Like, it's going to be a place of perfection. So what else do I really need to know? There's not that much more exhaustion I need. Huh?
Are we going to have free will? Are we going to be robots? Is it for eternity that we're going to be in one single place? What are we going to be doing? Worshiping God or not? Are we going to have our own places? Is it going to be like the realm that we have here? Is it going to be different? There's so much that you can go into in a place that we're going to literally spend eternity in.
Yeah.
I think that would be something you kind of want to talk about, right?
Well, I mean, on that point, yeah, I would have rather God talk about. I'd rather have the 2,000 book I was referring to earlier, where it goes over every little question all of us always have, right? I'd love an answer for every one of the questions I've ever had. But again, for whatever reason, God found it necessary that what he put in the text was what we needed for living a fair life here and having enough understanding of what the afterlife would be. But obviously he didn't give us everything. And again, I can't obviously speak to why he didn't give us more of this or less of that. But no, I don't need to have those answers to know where I want to go for eternity. I've been given enough in the, just small handful of passages in the New and Old Testament to know whether I want to spend eternity in heaven or hell.
Interesting. Do you think that we're going to have our free will in heaven?
By free will, if you mean in the same way that we have free will here, I would say no. Now, do I believe that means that we're being forced beyond our will to do something? No, because I believe that God has given us in this earth the decision, because the point that you're alluding to is, can I sin in heaven, right? Or am I going to be forced beyond my will to do the right thing? Well, similarly, I want you to think of it like, let's assume that you struggle with pornography. and you don't have the ability to get free from pornography, if you were to put blockers on your phone, no one would question whether you have free will. You're just saying, hey, I don't have the self-control to handle myself around pornography, so I put these blockers on my phone. In the same way, God's going to put a spiritual sin blocker on our brains or conscience, whatever you want to say, so that we aren't able to fall into the thing that we didn't want to fall into anyways.
Okay, so he'll take away some of our free will, but not all of it.
He will take away what we're asking him to take away in the first place. It's like asking you to put a blocker on my phone because I'm tired of struggling with pornography.
But what if I'm not wanting him to take that away? I'm not saying to take that away. What if I think watching porn is okay, and when I get to heaven, I want to still do it?
Well, you just won't go to heaven. You'll spend eternity in hell. If you don't want the,
Right,
the
so I can't have my free will.
No, you do. You get to choose where you're going to go.
But what if I choose to go to heaven? But you said that I've also chosen to have these things taken away, but I haven't. So I go to heaven, and God takes away my free will.
Yeah, I mean, your theoretical scenario just doesn't make sense. That's like me saying, like, hey, I want to shoot somebody in the head, but I also don't want a judge to send me to prison. It's like,
Well, not really, because God speaks zero about pornography.
Well, he talks about sexual morality. He does.
Sure, but
Obviously, he can't
you're
talk about
saying
every
this is
form of sexual morality.
What if God says it's okay, actually, because you're just watching something. You're not engaging in it yourself. You're actually just watching something, and God says that's actually not a sin.
Well, again, he does. He says if you lust after somebody, that's considered adultery in Matthew chapter 5. But let's take, like, for the purpose of the point that you're trying to make, let's take something like rape or murder that is explicitly sin. For something like those things, like, if you want to do those things in heaven, then, again, first off, we don't get to make the rules. But second off, like, you will just spend an eternity apart from Jesus if you're saying, I want to live my life my way. That's okay. You're allowed to say that you want to live life your way. You're just not going to spend eternity with Jesus.
But this is before the decision, right? Once you get to heaven, you can't take it back. Like, what if you get to heaven and you realize, actually, this isn't a good fit for me because this is not what I want? Can you escape heaven?
No, you're creating a theoretical scenario that is not even like an option that, you know, GS provides in the sense of, I want to go to heaven, but I could possibly change my mind one day.
Interesting. So I have to make the choice now without informed consent. When I get to heaven, if I don't like it, too bad, so sad. I'm along for the ride for eternity.
Informed consent on what?
I don't know exactly what I'm signing up for. I have no idea what heaven actually is, like you were just alluding to. We don't know what the 3 levels are. We don't know much about heaven. So if I get there and I end up not wanting to be there, I don't like it, because it goes against, you know, the sinful nature I want, I'm not allowed to escape it.
Well, you don't have a sinful nature in
I'm
heaven.
now captured into heaven.
You don't have a sinful nature in heaven.
I'm saying if I want to continue the sinful nature, I get to heaven and say, you know what, this isn't for me, and I actually don't want to be here.
Well, then you just wouldn't go there, and you'd go to hell in the first place.
But you're not understanding. I'm already there. I'm saying
I know what you're saying, but your theoretical scenario just doesn't work.
If I make the choice and I'm in heaven, okay, I've already made the choice. But now I'm in heaven and I'm finally experiencing it, and now I know exactly what it is, and I don't want to be there.
Right.
I can't leave.
No, I get your point, but I'm just saying your theoretical scenario just doesn't work because you're saying, God, I want to live free from sin forever, and then you go into heaven and then you say, I don't want to live free from sin forever. Like the strategy, the scenario just doesn't work in the first
Not
place.
necessarily saying that. What I'm saying is I would rather not burn in hell forever. And sure, if there's a God, I'll worship it. And then I meet that God, and it ends up being the God of the Bible who's committed a lot of things that I go against. And then it ends up heaven isn't exactly how I thought it would be. And I go, you know what? I don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's you're sounding like you need a one specific thing to know to make you comfortable with staying in heaven or not.
I need one thing specific.
Yeah, like there's a specific thing that if you have or don't have, then that will be like the deal breaker in whether you want to be in heaven or not.
Right. I'll give you an example. We go to heaven, and it turns out we're literally just bowing down and worshiping this God for eternity. That's all we're doing.
Yeah.
If I have, a problem with that, I won't be able to escape it. I'm now bowing down to this God for eternity because he deemed it so, and it's good since he deemed it so, and everything good comes from God. But I, as my own human experience, has decided I don't want to worship and bow down for eternity. That sounds really boring.
Yeah.
And I'd rather just go burn in hell.
Yeah.
I can't now escape that God, and I can't escape that heaven.
Right, but yet again, your scenario that you're creating in regards to how heaven will be is just false. Like you're taking one passage from Revelation 4 and then trying to create what eternity is going to look like. There's plenty more in Scripture that gives us the reason to believe that heaven will look a whole lot more like Earth today does, but just with the difference being that we will be again, no more pain, hurt, suffering. Sorry, there's a bug in front of me. Pain, hurt, suffering, etc. Then, again, we're just going to be these ghosts floating around just saying, holy, holy, holy is Lord God Almighty, who was and is and is to come, over and over and over again, and we never get to stop. Like, I'm with you. If that's what eternity sounds like, that doesn't sound like it's a place that necessarily anybody would want to do. But again, it's not. It's not that. But hey, I appreciate you. Let me let somebody else on. We went way longer than the 10 minutes I said I was going to go. But hey, I appreciate you coming on. Feel free to keep asking questions in the comments, okay?
Yeah, you have a good one, Cody.
Yeah, thank you for being cool, too. I appreciate you. Sorry, I didn't even know how to pop them off. Hey, if you're just now joining us, thank you so much for joining us. Hit us with any questions that you have in the comments. I'm going to stay on for 10 more minutes before I have to bounce off and be a big boy and do my job. So hit me with the questions that you all have. If you are just now joining us, please hit us with a follow. It'd be much appreciated. We're going to have more and more of these conversations going back and forth with people in regards to their beliefs. And by the way, if the gentleman who was just on here, I'm so sorry. I don't even know if I caught your name, but you were one of the most enjoyable conversations I've had on here. Regardless of the fact that you obviously completely disagree with what I believe. You were super cool and chill the whole time. Yeah, of course. The friendly agnostic. Yes. Someone said, why doesn't God make us with a sin? Why doesn't God make us without a sinful nature? As in, why does God make us with a sinful nature? Why doesn't God not have us have the sinful nature? To which the answer would be, God isn't forcing you into making a right or wrong decision. People get really hung up on this sin nature concept. God's not making you have a good or bad decision that you make. God is giving you free will. He's giving you choice. He's giving you the ability to do or to not do things. That's all he's giving you. You have the ability to make the right decision. Let me phrase that. You have the capability, the capacity to make the appropriate decision every single time. But for whatever reason, you choose not to. So to blame God for the fact that you can't handle yourself when it comes to sin that God explicitly told you to not commit in the first place, how is that God's fault? It has nothing to do with God at all. It has to do 100% with you choosing not to obey God. So again, you can't blame God for that. For you choosing to not live in, what he's told you to live as. Someone said, do I believe that Jesus is God? Yes, the Bible does teach that Jesus is God, so I do believe that. Someone had said, so there's no divine intervention. No, just because God doesn't do everything in regards to forcing you like a slave to and to not do all the things he could have you do and not do, doesn't mean that there's no divine intervention at all. We humans, we really struggle with a lack of structure in the sense of things have to be explicitly black or white or they just don't compute in our brain. No, like God can intervene, but not always intervene in scenarios. Someone asked, why did God kill the fig tree for not being in season? I answered that on yesterday's live, so I'm not going to go through that again. Someone said, we cannot decide to live sinlessly. You can. You have the ability to choose to not sin, and you're choosing to not do that. Oh, that person said I wasn't here for that conversation yesterday. You can check out on my YouTube channel. I answered that question very in depth. Someone said you read it, you're choosing to ignore it. I'm not sure what I read that I'm choosing to ignore. Please re-ask your question. Someone said I don't think you actually want to have a conversation. I just had like a 15, 20-minute conversation. So I love having conversations. Someone said atheists are not worth the argument. Jesus disagrees with you, Christian. Atheists are worth the argument. They might be buttholes sometimes and whatnot. But no, they are worth the argument. They're worth Jesus' life, so he said.
30 seconds remaining.
Also, Home Dog that was whining that I didn't answer his question. I'm still waiting for you to re-ask your question. I haven't seen you re-ask it yet. Someone asked, where's Mary's body? No idea. Plays no relevancy into the validity of anything, though. No idea where Mary's body is. Don't really care where Mary's body is either.
Victory, the
Someone said, did Jesus know how to read? Yes, of course Jesus knew how to read. In Luke 4, he reads out of the scroll of the prophet Isaiah. So yes, he definitely knew how to read. Hit me with your questions. Stand on for like 4 more minutes and then I'm bouncing off. So give me some good old fun, juicy questions to end this thing with. Again, I'm getting this question a lot of people asking why I'm not answering their questions. I have no beef or concern of answering your personal question. I'm getting like dozens of questions a second strolling through. I'm just trying to read the ones that I can most quickly read. Someone asked what version of the, or like translation of the Bible I read. I read the New American Standard Bible. That and the RSV are the 2 most commonly encouraged translations by scholars to read when it comes to a biblical accuracy perspective. Someone said, are you open to alternative questions? I don't know what you mean by alternative questions, but I mean, you can ask whatever you want. Someone asked what I think of the KJV. I do not like the KJV. There's nothing wrong from a translation accuracy standpoint of the KJV, but I don't read it, nor do I encourage other people to read it, because I don't speak in Shakespearean English. So I don't know why I would attempt to learn a whole new language just to learn the Bible in English. So again, I don't have any issues with it, but it's not the best translation out there for sure. Someone asked, with there being thousands of religions, why do you think the one that you were born into is the true one? Well, I was not born into any religion, so I was not just, grown up with a spiritual silver spoon in my mouth. I had come to Jesus at a later point. With that being said, as I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, there are people who come to Jesus solely because they grew up that way. That is definitely a true statement. People, they grew up with a certain religious belief, so therefore that's what they have and will always have. That is an accurate thing. With that being said, though, that has no relevancy in regards to which of those religions is true. Buddhism isn't accurate because I grew up in a Buddhist country. Islam is not accurate because I grew up in Afghanistan. Christianity is not true because I grew up in America. Those things don't make any sense. Truth is not based upon geography at all. It has zero relevancy to geography. So to use a claim like that, it just doesn't make any sense. One more question, I'm out of here. If y'all would, hit me with a follow if you would, and on our next one, I'll have somebody else come on and go on a debate back and forth with me as well. Someone said I grew up Catholic, and I'm glad I switched. I'm glad you did too. Someone said, how long after Jesus died was the Bible written? That was a great question. I appreciate you asking. The Bible was starting to be written way before Jesus was born. Jesus was born in his earthly body. Way before was he born. With that being said, the Bible was finished in its entirety probably around 70, 80 years after he died was the Bible finalized. But yeah, the Bible started thousands of years before Jesus was ever born in his earthly body. So again, last time, if y'all would please hit me with a follow, it would be much appreciated. I appreciate you all for joining us, and I will be coming on a little bit later today to do another. Thanks, guys. Hey Joe, let's go to the short-term rental automation period. Ready for our call in 30 minutes? Question mark. Perfect. Call in shortly.
This one wasted. Half of 1 minute is all that stands before victory.